So at this point, you should be telling yourselves that the plan did work, that the bus did go into the hole, and in the rest of the video, we are going to be reading the rest of our assigned pages, which, as you know, going back to our pacing, it's going to be to page 24. But as we move on, we're looking for the effects of Stacy's plan. So we know that Stacy's plan, we see that the bus driver tells him that the bus now has a broken axle and water is in the engine. And he basically, okay, so let me highlight that first. He said it's going to be that light blue. I'm going to choose lighter blue, sorry. Okay, then he says that he tells them that they're going to have to walk home. I find this part really funny because then a little girl asks him, like, are you going to be here tomorrow? And he does not handle that well. He says the effect of it's going to be that they're going to be walking for at least 2 weeks by the time that they're able to get it fixed. So I thought that was funny. Okay, so let's keep going from here. The students turned dismally from the bus. They didn't know how wide the hole actually was. Some of them took a wild guess and tried to jump it, but most of them miscalculated and fell in to our everlasting delight. Others attempted to hop over the gullies to the forest to bypass the hole. However, we knew from much experience that they would not make it. By the time most of the students managed to get to the other side of the ditch, their clothes were dripping with the weight of the muddy water. No longer laughing, they moved spiritlessly toward their homes, where a disgruntled Mr. Grimes leaned moodily against the raised rear end of the bus. Oh, how sweet was well-maneuvered revenge. Okay, so really quickly, we feel that there's another few different effects here. So it's basically telling us that as they're getting out of the bus, they're having that big challenge of like having to jump from the bus, and a lot of them are landing in the hole, which must be hilarious. And then some of them are trying to go through the forest, but they're once again not making it. So I think these last two sentences kind of describe the way that they're feeling the effects of the hole. And then it goes on to say that their clothes are dripping with the weight of the muddy water. They're no longer laughing, they're moving spiritlessly, and the bus driver's left really moody with the bus. So these are once again effects of Stacy's plans. So I'm going to highlight them all blue. Okay. With that thought in mind, we quietly eased away and picked our way through the dense forest toward home. At supper, Mama told Big Ma of the Jefferson Davis bus being stuck in the ditch. It's funny, you know, such a wide ditch in one day. I didn't even notice the beginning of it this morning. Did you, children? No, we chorused. You didn't fall in, did you? We jumped onto the bank when we thought the bus would be coming, said Stacy truthfully. Well, good for you, approved Mama. If that bus hadn't been there when I came along, I'd probably have fallen myself. The boys and I looked at each other. We hadn't thought about that. How'd you get across, Mama? Stacy asked. Somebody decided to put a board across the washout. They gonna haul that bus out of there tonight? Big Ma inquired. No, ma'am, said Mama. I heard Mr. Granger telling Ted Grimes, the bus driver, that they won't be able to get it out until after the rain stops and dries up a bit. It's just too muddy now. We put our hands to our mouths to hide happy grins. I even made a secret wish that would rain until Christmas. So there's another effect, right? That they won't be able to get the bus out until it stops raining. So it has to stay there for the time being. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that. Mama smiled. You know, I'm glad no one was hurt. Could have been two with such a deep ditch. But I'm also rather glad it happened. Mary, Big Ma exclaimed. Well, I am, Mama said defiantly, smiling smugly to herself and looking very much like a young girl. I really am. Big Ma began to grin. You know something? I am too. Then all of us began to laugh and were deliciously happy. Later that evening, the boys and I sat at the study table in Mom and Papa's room, attempting to concentrate on our lessons, but none of us could succeed for more than a few minutes without letting out a triumphant giggle. More than once, Mama scolded us, telling us to get down to business. Each time she did, we set our faces into looks of great seriousness, resolved that we would be adult about the matter and not gloat in our hour of victory. Yet just one glance at each other and we were lost, slumping on the table in helpless, contagious laughter. "All right," Mama said finally. "I don't know what's going on here, but I suppose I'd better do something about it or you'll never get any work done." It occurred to us that Mama might be preparing to whip us, and we shot each other warning glances. But even that thought couldn't dampen our laughter. Now, uncontrollable, welling up from the pits of our stomachs and forcing streams of laughter, tears down our faces. Stacy, holding his sides, turned to the wall in an attempt to bring himself under control. Little man just put his head under the table, but Christopher John and I doubled up and fell on the floor. Mama took my arm and pulled me up. "Over here, Cassie," she said, directing me to a chair next to the fireplace and behind Big Ma, who was ironing our clothes for the next day. I peeped around Big Ma's long skirts and saw Mama guiding Stacy to her own desk. Then back she went for Little Man and, picking him up bodily, set him in the chair beside her rocker. Christopher John she left alone at the study table. Then she gathered all our study materials and brought them to us, along with a book that said she would tolerate no more of this, along with a look that said she would tolerate no more of this foolishness. With Big Ma before me, I could see nothing else, and I grew serious enough to complete my arithmetic assignment. When that was finished, I lingered before opening my reader, watching Big Ma as she hung up my iron dresses, then placed her heavy iron on a small pile of embers burning in a corner of the fireplace, and picked up a second iron already warming there. She tested the iron with a tap of her finger and put it back again. So we can even say, before we move on, that this is also an effect, right? That they're so happy and they make each other laugh just by looking at each other, just because they are really satisfied with how the plan worked out. So I'm going to highlight this, that the mom has to separate them. Okay. While Big Ma waited for the iron to get hot, I could see Mama bending over outspread newspapers, scraping the dried mud off the old field shoes of Papa's, which she wore daily, stuffed with wads of newspaper over her own shoes to protect them from the mud and the rain. Little man beside her was deep into his first-grade reader, his eyebrows furrowed in concentration. Ever since Mama had brought the reader home with the offensive inside cover no longer visible, Little man had accepted the book as a necessary tool for passing the first grade, but he took no pride in it. Looking up, he noticed that Big Ma was now preparing to iron his clothes, and he smiled happily. Then his eyes met mine, and silent laughter creased his face. I muffled a giggle, and Mama looked up. "Cassie, you started up again, and I'm sending you to the kitchen to study," she warned. "Yes'm," I said, settling back in my chair and beginning to read. I certainly did not want to go to the kitchen, now that the fire no longer burned in the stove. It was cold in there. The room grew quiet again, except for the earthy humming of Big Ma's rich alto voice, the crackle of the hickory fire, and the patter of the rain on the roof. Engrossed in the mystery, I was startled when the comfortable sounds were shattered by those rapid knocks on the side door. Rising quickly, Mama went to the door and called, "Who is it?" "It's me, ma'am," came a man's gravely voice. "Joe Avery." Mama opened the door, and Mr. Avery stepped dripping into the room. So this is the end of our reading for tonight, and it's leaving us with the last question on why does Mr. Avery arrive. So I'm going to leave that as my question. So that question's going to be we're going to answer that question in our next reading. But for the rest of our recording, we are going to answer number 3. So let's remind ourselves what number 3 is. What does Stacy plan, and why does he plan this? Okay, so here is our evidence starting on page 17. So it says up to where that bus forces off the road. So that's kind of like more like the why, right? He's doing it because the bus that day force them off the road. And then this is where he's telling Cassie what to do. So that's like kind of like what his plan is. And then we also have kind of more evidence of what they're doing. And then we have, then the four of us ran back and forth hastily. So I don't know, we might just want to, okay, so I think I'm just going to choose the second one because it kind of shows what each person's doing for the plan. So I'm going to pick that one. So in the text, it says, it's going to, okay, so as we choose our evidence, we know that we're choosing it because this is explaining more like what the plan is, page 18. So I'm going to put the page. This means that the Logan children are working together to, okay, then if you're following along with me, just take a moment to finish this out. You can even pause it right here to answer your question. I would say something along the lines of they're working together to create a giant hole or a giant ditch in the road, and like, you know, to trap the bus. And then we need to answer the why. Why does he plan this? This shows that they are trying to create a ditch because, so I'm going to answer the white part here, and once again pause it here if you would like to answer on your own and then check your answer. I would say something like they're trying to create a ditch because they're trying to get revenge from being ran off the road earlier from the bus. Something like that. Okay, so with that being said, we have met our goal for today. So we have completely done the Wednesday task. Later today, I will start posting the discussion board question, so you can look to that to create your own question and start answering others. And then remember that it is due tomorrow. If you are posting your question, make sure you're answering it to classmates by tomorrow too. Or option B is to attend our Zoom session, which will look like a Socratic seminar where you ask your question and we'll discuss the answers. I hope that you're able to attend the Zoom sessions because that way you get the best understanding since you're able to have that discussion about the book. But other than that, thank you for listening to our video, and I hope you found it helpful.